Well, Nakhane is back to perform on home soil with a new album influenced by music and sounds from home, South Africa. The Fete follows successful world performances with powerful messaging aimed at translating cultural wealth into economic growth, restoring they-them agency on the continent and beyond. Nakhane joins us now via video link to chat further. Nakhane, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. A pleasure to be speaking to you. So now you've solidified a career across, borders. How does it feel to be back home? What's been the reception like?
I love coming back home. If anything, I'd like to come back home more often, actually. It's just that, life takes over and you get busy. But I do believe that my favorite audience is definitely the audience that I play to when I'm at home.
Absolutely. So talk to us about, why you are home. Talk to us about the upcoming performance in Johannesburg. And more importantly, you've dropped an album in March. How has that been received? I would imagine you would be performing that. And just talk to a little bit about your style and, of course, the story that has evolved.
Well, I'll be in South Africa to perform at the Lyric Theatre at Gold City on the 24th of November. The last time I performed at home was, I think, about a year and a half ago. And that was outdoor. And outdoor is nice. The festivals are fun, but there's something really beautiful about performing in an intimate setting where, quietness is almost as loud as using loudness. So you get to be really small and intimate and really connect with individuals instead of trying to speak to a field of people. So that's really one of the reasons why I love performing indoors. But also because the album that came out on the 31st of March, called Bastard Jargon, was so influenced by sounds particularly that I was listening to in my teenage years, or maybe when I was even younger than that, Kwaito, even South African jazz, Zimmawana, TKZ, all of that music was very influential to this album. I think it's because first album that I wrote outside of South Africa. So I wanted something to reach back home,
Absolutely. And I love the way, you speak about it, the passion. I also saw in some of your social media posts that you're starting to dabble in directing, which is amazing. But just going back to the album, just talk to us about, that process of creating it. And of course, very symbolic in terms of using language and literature, and how you express yourself in the album. Just a little bit about that journey.
I wanted, for the first time, to make music that was fun while I was making it, Not fun while I'm performing it to audiences, but actually something that gave me pleasure as I was making it. And so that changed how I wrote songs. And normally I would sit at the piano or the keyboard or with the guitar and write music around that and then add drums. This time around, I wanted every song on the album to have drums. I wanted it to be quite a rhythmic album. And so in order to circumvent myself not following through with that, I started with the drums. I started with rhythm. And for me, that, again, I repeat this, that was me trying to sort of, tie a string around my waist, and another one home. Just to remind myself, about where I come from. Because it's easy for human beings to forget. You surround yourself with different people, different languages. So, I always want to keep my South African identity very, very foregrounded in my work and also in my own identity.
I would like to say that, of course, home has influenced you a lot, but you also speak about the people that you have surrounded yourself with. So who were your influences growing up musically, and also who influenced you this time around in terms of your album?
Growing up, I was enamored of Brenda Fassie because she did what she wanted to do. And I think she's been a huge hero to a lot of my generation, at least, because she taught us what freedom was. She also taught us that freedom was expensive, that you constantly had to remind people that you were liberated and that they could liberate themselves. She gave us permission to liberate ourselves and to make the kind of work that we do now. And when I was a little child, I was a huge fan of Mama Betha Malope. I remember going to the University of Fete when I think I was like 4 or something with my aunt, and we went to see a concert of hers. And she's always been such an important figure, musical figure of my childhood. So those were the two main, influences as a child. As I grew up, I started listening to other music. I started listening to like Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, and then as the internet became a big thing, I started to delve even deeper into other stranger sounds, which, to put it simply, all of that music ends up influencing whatever you're making at that point in time.
Give us a sense about, what people are likely to, to see on the 24th of November. It is a once-off performance, of course, one night
Yes.
only at the Lyric Theatre. Just give us a sense of, what's in store. Of course, not giving too much away.
Well, I can't because I don't have my instruments. But when I was making the album, and this is what I wanted. I said this is what I described to myself on my pages. I said I wanted to make something that went, because up until then I was I wanted to make something rhythmic and electronic, and that made people want to stand up and dance and forget their problems. Even though maybe the songs remind you of the problems, but remember your problems while you're having a good time. In an environment that gives you space to be your most authentic self. That's what I've always wanted my shows to be. That kind of ritual, a ritual to a wide and big freedom.
Just talking about, being your authentic self, just give us a taste in terms of your favorite artists, those that you want to surround yourself with, particularly as you produce, some of your work. I know, of course, you've worked with Moonchild, Asaneli, Nile Rodgers, just to name some of the few people that you've been featuring prominently. Just talk to us a little bit about those partnerships.
The reason I worked with Moonchild Asaneli was because we come from the same city. There's a Kamecha kind of attitude, but it's very specific to that city. And I wanted her on my song, Tell Me a Politic, because I knew that she would extend whatever intention that I had to its most perfect final resolution, Nile Rodgers is basically the architect of what pop music is in the 21st century. He's worked on almost all big pop albums that were made in the 80s and 90s. So I was very lucky to have worked with him, because actually when I think about it and talk about it, it's still, I still can't believe it. It's still insane to me. But my musical influences are varied. I grew up wanting to sing like Marvin Gaye. My favorite singer of all time is Mamusi Mhlongo. As I always say, it may sound cheesy, that when she sings, I feel like I hear God. So for me, if I could reach that level of transcendence, whether by myself or with people that I collaborate with, then I will die a happy person.
Well, like I said in the beginning of the interview, you have certainly solidified a career across, all borders. Nakhane, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. A pleasure to speak to you. And of course, Nakhane, you can catch him live at the Lyrics Theatre. Hopefully you bought your tickets. It's a one-night show only on the 24th of November.